So hi everyone. So welcome to the LoudStory Startup League. So this is my third meetup. I've seen a few familiar faces in the audience. So I'm really glad that you are still keeping up with storytelling. I see a number of people in the room, so I have the feeling that you are really curious about storytelling. I don't know if many of you already have an idea of what it is, or if it's really new to most of you. But I will try to explain to you why you might need it as an entrepreneur, why it's really powerful, why to me it's the best marketing solution ever. But it's also something that is not that easy to create. I will tell you the Airbnb story because to me it's one of these very few startups that are embracing storytelling like every day. There are very few startups actually, even in the Silicon Valley, that are really using storytelling because it's a journey in itself. It's something that's really powerful, but it's powerful because it's a bit difficult to craft. It's like creating a blockbuster, like the best movie everyone wants to see. So, sorry. So my goal tonight is to explain to you how you can find really magic in your brand if you explore storytelling and really use it the best way. So a few words on my background. I used to work in press relations, in PR, and when I started hanging out with entrepreneurs, many of them would come to me and ask me, well, can you help on PR? Can you tell me how to get in touch with journalists, how to get their attention? And mostly I would give them very basic advice, mostly technical advice, at what time you should contact a journalist, how to find the journalist, what to tell him, etc. But deep down inside, I was a bit uncomfortable because I know that even though you have the right techniques to contact a journalist, it's really hard to get his attention, especially when you are not already well known. Because all a journalist wants, it's a good story. So I started wondering, how do I explain what is a good story? And I found out that actually there are techniques to create a good story. And so I decided that I wanted to share my knowledge. That's why I created this meetup. And I also created a platform. It's about to be launched. I'm still coding it. But at the end of the month, you should be able to access it. And there you will find really basic exercise to explore the 3 pillars of storytelling, which are: who is your audience? Who is your user? And this user in your story is going to be the hero, not you. And you will explore who you are, what is your mission as a brand, what is the story you want to tell to this user. And finally, what is unique about you? Because you probably have this experience as an entrepreneur. When you start and you don't know how to communicate, oftentimes you will look at what your competitors do or what other startups do, because you feel that if they are successful with the way they communicate, maybe if you copy and paste, it will work. But actually, consumers, especially on the internet, they are extremely blasé. And when they hear your message, you have like one shot, and if it's not like really powerful and unique, if they feel that they already have heard this story like 1,000,000 times, they will just go away. So that's the third pillar. You have to find what is really unique about you. And I feel that it's what is the most exciting when you do storytelling, because you are really looking inside of yourself and you're trying to find what was this impulse you had when you actually decided to start the startup. What was not just the idea, but the feeling you had when you thought, this is great, I should do that. So that's what you're going to find on the platform. And before that, I will organize a few workshops to help you focus on a full day on your storytelling. So I'm going to be with you. I've already done that 2 times with entrepreneurs, and we spend the whole day working on exercises. I will guide you, inspire you, etc. And then oftentimes you will need somebody to tell you, okay, this is my story, what do you think? So I'll do that for you and give you personal feedback for 2 hours. So this will be this Saturday and the Saturday after for 8 entrepreneurs. That's 149 euros, and it's satisfaction guaranteed because I'm really so convinced that the method I have created is works really well, that I really think you will not ask for your money back, but if it doesn't work for you, I will give you your money. And you can register on my Meetup page. And lastly, at the end of my presentation, I will ask a founder, an entrepreneur, to come on stage, and he will pitch in front of you. It will not be a VC pitch, an investor pitch. It will be really a consumer pitch, how he would tell his story to someone who might be interested in his service. So I've helped him with my exercises craft this pitch, so hopefully for me you will find it compelling. And I will ask your feedback. At the end I will distribute a form, and if you can just, like, it's a few crosses on a sheet, if you can help him and tell him what worked and what didn't work, it would be great. And finally, many thanks to Diane and to School Lab. School Lab is an incubator for startups, especially for students, and this is where we are gathered tonight. So many thanks for welcoming this meetup tonight. So let's start. So how do you tell a good story? So to me, storytelling is really two things. Actually, you might think that when you are looking for a very basic definition, storytelling is really telling a story. That's why most of the time, especially in the US, when you read about storytelling, you will hear about how to pitch, how to tell a story when you pitch. And oftentimes people will recommend that, for instance, you tell your personal story, how you get there. But it's not enough to tell a story, to do storytelling. You have to tell a good story. Because there is a huge difference between a story and a good story, and you find it in the eyes of your audience. Because when it's a good story, first people listen, then they are excited about what you say, and then they will tell others. They will become your best ambassadors, and that's what everybody wants, because it's free marketing, word of mouth. And so basically a good story, to put it shortly, it's the promise of a better future. So it's probably a bit mysterious to you right now, but I'm going to explain and illustrate what it means. But a story means that you have to show a way. I call it the North Star. It's like the guiding elements that, it's like showing at the star to your consumers and telling them, that's where I want to drive you. That's where I want to go with you. So there should be a promise. We are not there now. We want to go there, but it's possible. So it's a promise. And that's how you connect your brand with your users. You are making a promise, and they want to believe it. So you have to be credible, of course, and it has to be a promise that they feel deeply connected to. So why did I choose Airbnb? I don't know how many of you know their actual story, how they started. How many of you actually know the Airbnb story? Can you raise your hand? So yeah, that's about half of the audience, okay. It's quite well known because they communicate a lot about it. And if you are a struggling entrepreneur right now, you're probably looking for a lot of videos and articles from other successful entrepreneurs. And Airbnb is definitely a successful story. So Brian Chesky, the CEO and co-founder of Airbnb, said in an interview recently, to succeed, you have to put users first. Focus on love. The best marketing is investing in the user experience, and then the user will market for you. What it means is that usually it may sound obvious, but as I experienced it myself, when you start with an idea and you are struggling to convince people to buy this idea, or you are just testing the idea, usually, actually, you're not putting users first. You are putting yourself first. You are struggling to identify what is the best word to describe what you are doing. So it's really about facts, or what is better in your solution than in other people's solutions. So it's really a corporate view of your business. But when you start to put users first, you are really focusing on actually what they need, so it's better for your business. But you're also focusing on what they have in their head. And the only way to tell a good story is to know what story is already going on in their head. Because everybody, when you are pitching, telling them something, they have their own sets of problems. They have fears about not being able to achieve something, or they dream about something, or something they're just critical because they don't believe you. But you don't hear it because it's in their head. But the more you know what's in your user's head and heart, the more you will be able to tell not just a rationally compelling story, but really a heartful story. So Airbnb did focus on love, and they also focused on the whole user experience, and I'm going to go back to this later because it's really important. But what is probably comforting for you is that it took them time to go there, because at first they were like you or like us, they focused on their own product. So that's the story I'm going to tell you in a minute. So for what is the basic structure of storytelling? So in any story, there is a hero. There is he has some hopes and some fears, something he wants to achieve, but is really afraid to do. And then there is a mentor who's going to tell him, yes, you can achieve this goal. I'm going to guide you, to inspire you, to help you. And finally, there is this call to adventure, this key sentence that the mentor is going to tell the hero, to tell him, like Nike says, just do it. Or like Apple puts it, think different. It's really about giving the user the power to be what he wants to be. So this is the classic structure for a story. So there is a mentor, he calls to adventure the protagonist, and he tells him he can become a hero. In a startup story, it would be the brand who makes the promise to the audience, to the users, that the brand will help them become who they aspire to be. And in this sentence, the product is not what they want to buy. They are buying the promise. And the product is just going to help them be what they want to be. So that's, I applied it to Airbnb, but I'm not going to stay too long on this slide because I'm going to go back to this a lot. But basically right now, the promise of Airbnb is that travelers can belong anywhere. People, when they travel, they don't have to feel anonymous in the city, because Airbnb identified that the truth about travelers, maybe you can identify with that yourself, is that when they travel, they dream of the city, of the place they are going to go to. And they have really a fantasy of the travel before they go there. And then oftentimes when they go to a hotel, it's so anonymous that they'll feel like a tourist, and nobody wants to feel like a tourist. When you dream about a place you want to go, you want to imagine that you are, for instance, if you probably all dreamt about going to New York one day, and then when you got there, either you went with all the tourists in all the touristic places, and you probably didn't feel that you lived the true New York. And what you wanted is to feel like a New Yorker. Because before you go to New York, you have these movies in your head, imagining what it is, New York, and you want to experience that. So that's the promise Airbnb makes on its website, and that no other traveling website makes to their users. They're really unique in this way. So there are 3 chapters in the Airbnb storytelling story. The first one took 1.5 years, so that's quite long. If you know the story, you probably know that they struggled for 18 months before the website really took off. So for 18 months, they were focusing on themselves. Then they realized they had to focus on the hero, so that's the user. And for the last 4.5 years, they told a story of love and trust. And to me, if you had to remember one thing about storytelling, is really that you are always telling a story of love and trust. Trust because as a mentor, you have to be trustworthy. People, if you're not credible, people will think bullshit. And so it's really key, and you will see that Airbnb had a very bad experience concerning trust. And it's about love. It's about, people want to feel, it may seem weird, but when people buy a brand, they want to feel loved. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you're not just going to eat. You want to have an amazing experience. So you want the restaurant to welcome you as a special guest. And if you're not treated well, even though the food was good, you will never go back to this place. And that's the same with brand. That's the same when people go on a website. They want to have an amazing experience, and they want the experience to be really great. They want to feel loved. So first act. So the story of Airbnb begins in San Francisco in 2007. These three guys, they were friends. These two, Brian Chevsky, CEO, Joe Gebbia, Chief Product Officer, met in a school design, a very famous school design in the US. They studied together. And this guy went to Harvard, and he was a computer science graduate, and used to be the roommate of Joe Gebbia. So, and like you, like many people in the US, young people, they wanted to be entrepreneurs. They wanted to start a startup. They wanted to be famous. They wanted to have a lot of money. So they looked for an idea. And for many years, for the first 1.5 years, they didn't only work on Airbnb. They tested many ideas. Now they tell you that they were only focused on Airbnb, but the truth is they tested many ideas like you. And so they had some extra space in their flat in San Francisco, and there was a design convention coming to San Francisco. And so they had this gut feeling that maybe, and it was not that obvious 8 years ago, maybe people are willing to stay at a stranger's home. So they thought, let's test that. So they created this website. And what is really moving to me when I look at this website is that the first impulse, the reason they decided to test this idea, it's because they wanted to for people to feel at home in their place. That's why they addressed designers first, because they were designers themselves, and they thought, well, when a designer comes to a foreign place and he wants a place to stay, what other what other great place to stay than at a designer's? So that's why they put themselves first. We are two designers, and we created a new way to connect. And on the picture you can see, I don't know if you can see actually, but it's written, IDSA attendees, welcome to San Francisco. And that's the exact baseline of their website 8 years later. So it's like a full circle. They thought, what can we say, what is really exciting about us? And then 8 years later, they come back to who they really were when they started this idea. What was their impulse? And they got back to this exact same baseline. Because you may not know, but now the baseline on the Airbnb website is welcome home. So to me, it's already a love story. They are really telling you, designers, we want to welcome you in our home. So just a few, I will give you just a few words on their communication strategy each time, because probably it's something that might interest you. So to communicate on this first launch, they sent just an email to design bloggers. It was really obvious. And these designers, they responded very warmly about it, so they wrote about it. And so at the end of the day, or at the end of the convention, they managed to have 7 listings, so 7 people in San Francisco listed their apartment on the website, which is really not bad for a first date to me. And a dozen attendees booked on the website. Then they thought, okay, we tested the idea, now let's make it a business, or let's test that there is a real business. Let's test that more than 12 people in the world want to stay at a stranger's home. So there was this big festival, I don't know if you know South by Southwest. It's a really huge festival. It used to be first a music festival, and then it turned out to be a tech festival. And it's in Texas. And so it's in Austin, which is a fairly small city. And there are like dozens of thousands of people going there every year. So you can imagine there is a housing problem. All the hotels are booked like 6 months in advance. And so they thought, well, this is a great place to test our business. So they create a new website, and this time they decided that the most convincing argument for people would be price. They thought, okay, what is bed and breakfast? The first name they had. It's an alternative to expensive hotels. And they thought, I like the fact that they thought events creates trust, because they thought if you are a host, you have a place with extra, a flat with extra space. How to make you feel comfortable about having someone, a total stranger to your house? Well, maybe if you know that this person came to your town to attend a special event, then you will be more comfortable. So at the beginning, the idea was to not find where in the world you want to stay, but at what event you want to find a place. But so they communicated with a press release. I only found one article online. Maybe there was a little more than that, but not that much. And in the end, they had fewer bookings than in San Francisco. Just 2 people booked on their website. So maybe the press strategy was not good. Maybe the website was not compelling enough. My guess is that when you talk to your users and you tell them, you should buy my product because it's cheap, you are actually telling them a story of them being broke. You don't have money? No problem, come to me. But you don't want to feel that you have no money. Poor people, actually, there was not poor people, but in general, you might understand that poor people don't want to be remembered that they are poor. They want to be inspired to be something else, that they are great, that they are creative, that they are, I don't know, they have talent, whatever, but not that they are poor. And that's the message they were sending. So they thought, okay, let's try another round. And they considered this launch, which is a year after their first trial. Okay, this is going to be the big launch. So it was the DNC, that's the Democratic National Convention, was coming up in Denver. And that's the day where Obama was named the official candidate for the presidential election. And there was already this frenzy about Obama. And they thought, okay, everybody will want to go to Denver. So really, all the hotels will be booked. We have to launch there. And so their message to me was kind of a bit mixed up. So on one side, they are telling people, you should forget about hotels, which is what they said earlier, like, come to us because you don't have money to go to hotels. Stay with a local when you travel. I don't know if it's really compelling for a political supporter to know that he can stay with a local, because he's not really traveling, he's going to an event. And that's what, to me, that's why to me the message was a bit confusing, because they are focusing both on events and on, I think this is Paris, this is Notre Dame. So it's better to me than the previous one, but still not enough. And how did they communicate on it? They hired a PR firm for $10,000. And with the help of PR consultants, like me, they sent press release first to bloggers because they couldn't get the attention of big outlets. And the local bloggers were happy to pick up the message, to write about it. But then it was a good strategy, and I advise you to do that when you feel that the big newspapers don't want to talk about you, they're not interested. Go to the bloggers first, at least small bloggers, and then it will give you credibility, because when journalists check you online, they will see that already somebody's talking about you, hopefully nice things, and they are more likely to cover you because you're not unknown anymore. And then the big outlets and the local news were looking for news, because they had to write about this event like every day or every minute on the web. And so they finally got covered by local news and the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and TechCrunch. TechCrunch being, if you are aware of the tech press in the US, it's supposed to be like when you're a startup and you're on TechCrunch, you finally exist. And so the outcome was 800 listings, so that's quite good. And yeah, this is an advice I've heard from Nathan Blecharczyk. I don't know how you pronounce it. So it's the CTO of the company. And he says, when you are starting, ride the wave, don't try to create it. And it's really about being opportunistic. When your story is not that strong already, it's better to use the stories that's in the air, that people have in mind, and be opportunistic about it and try to create your story on this wave. So there was like this huge peak when the TechCrunch article was released, and then a big crash. So obviously it was not enough to be on TechCrunch. So how do you create love? That's the second act. In January 2009, they were about to give up because they really put all their efforts in this big launch, and then they crashed, and they thought, maybe we just dreamt about it, but maybe there's no business. But they got the attention of Y Combinator. I don't know if you know this really famous incubator in the Silicon Valley. And the founder of the incubator told them, where are your users? And they said, in New York. They had 50 users in New York. So Paul Graham, the founder, said, well, go to your users. And that was like what helped them really take off, because by going to their users, they were it allowed them to really understand what was in their users' mind, because they basically got out and have beer with them and discuss with them, and the Airbnb team started also telling the story of Airbnb, and people felt that was a great story because they were doing very great storytelling. And so the word got out, and they had really social media coverage. So people started tweeting about it because they made sure that the experience was exactly what people wanted the experience to be. And then they changed their tagline, their slogan. And Brian Chesky said, we changed our tagline to say that we believe in a certain kind of world. And this world is, like I said earlier, we believe in a world where travel is not mass-produced, in a world where traveling can be like when you are in a village again, when people connect one with another. So there was really a very strong insight they had. So they rebranded their website. As you can see, the tagline, it's kind of weird when you say it out loud, but it's travel like a human. It didn't stay very long, actually, on the website, probably because it was a bit awkward. And also, beneath Find Place to Stay, it's written, you probably can read it, but I'll read it for you, rent nightly from real people. So they really wanted, obviously, to focus on really human connection and real people compared to hotels. But they didn't have to tell, forget hotels, because it was a negative message. And people don't want to hear negative things. They want to dream. They want to feel inspired. They want to tell themselves a story. It's like opening a book. And sometimes it's good to be mysterious. not to just tell the whole story from beginning to end. Like you have to create some sparkle in their mind. And they also realize that what is most compelling for people when they want to travel, it's really beautiful images. So you may not know, but when they got to New York to visit their users, one of the things they realized is that people are really bad at connecting their camera with their computer. And so even though they were able to take nice pictures of their flat, they were not able to put it on the website. And the team knew that good photos convert a lot more than crappy photos. So they offered free professional photographer service. I know you've used it. I don't know if any one of you used it, but it's like this amazing experience. They're telling their hosts, I'm going to help you earn money, and I'm going to help you in the most beautiful way. I'm going to show that you have a great place. They were also very lucky because in one of their early hire was this girl, Vanisha Pristavik, a very nice girl, and they hired her in August 2009 for customer support. So I've been in touch with her, and she told me that she was first hired with another girl just to answer customer tickets on a Gmail outbox. And she was living in LA at the time because she used to work in the film industry. She went to film school, and she was really passionate about the film industry. But she thought, it's not a job for me. Actually, I've been there. It can be a bit disappointing when you work in the field of your dreams. So she loved Airbnb, she loved the experience, so she asked the team if she could work for them, and so they said sure. And then, since she had this film background, one weekend, 7 months later after she was hired, she said to the team, okay, I have this idea. What if we create a video showing our hosts and the place where they offer guests to stay? And she said, I wanted to show that hosts were actually everyday, normal, lovely people with great places, which is, once again, it may seem obvious right now, but 8 years ago, or 7 years ago, the basic marketing was not to show how people use your product. It used to be just to show screenshots or just very corporate smile of, bank photos. I don't know how you call them. And so that's what she did.
We're here with Airbnb Crib Zone at listing 147, just a mile away from the beach in Los Angeles. We're going to check out the Venice Beach Bungalow with Angie and Danny, see what it has to offer. So we are here with Angie and Danny, and they live in this beautiful abode. Now, how long have you guys been together? Now I know, but tell everyone how long you've been together.
13 years. We're high school sweethearts.
The Venice Beach Bungalow sleeps 4 with 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. It's just a walk away from the boutique shops of Abbot Kinney Boulevard, and you can even borrow a bike. It's only 10 minutes to the beach. So what's your guys' favorite part about renting to people on Airbnb.com?
I'd have to say the people. Every time we get a new guest, they have a different story, or they come from a different place. We've had people come from all over. And
then you said you guys have been known to cook meals for your guests before?
Yes, we've done a couple dinner parties.
Danny, he'll use fresh ingredients from his garden. And in the summer, Danny has so many beautiful heirloom tomatoes and cucumbers and things. So he's a personal chef for, we won't say who, an A-list client in Hollywood. So you don't want to miss out.
Cheers, you
Cheers.
guys.
Okay, so you probably had, maybe, I don't, did you like it? Yeah, it was nice, wasn't it? So that's where I think they were lucky, because the girl in the movie, so that's Vinisha, the girl who was going to become their creative lead until last year, so she stayed like 6 years. And she had, honestly, quite a talent to make a compelling story, because on the one hand, I recommend you to do video, because it's really the most powerful way to tell a story. A lot more powerful than to just show a photo or a text. But it's some work to create the best scenario possible. It's quite simple here, but on the other hand, it's not that simple to make something simple. But she made like 800 videos for 6 years. So if you go on their YouTube channel, you will see like hundreds of really funny, amazing, great places and great people. And the intent was to show that if you go on Airbnb, you will find people like you, and very welcoming people, very warm people. And it's really the best way to show, not just tell, but to show that you are really a brand that promises you an amazing experience, rather than just telling it. This is another video I'm not going to show you because it will be too long, but it's kind of funny. It's the founder himself who decided to give up his apartment and to become a permanent guest. So every day he lives in one of the hosts of Airbnb. And so it's a very funny video showing him going from places to places, connecting with real people. And it was called Travel Like Humans, so really their promise. So that's another video. I'm not going to show you all the videos, but this is their first professional video. So you see it's January 2011, so it took them some time to go to the professional video. But it was not that expensive, so that $30,000. It might be a lot, but in the US it's not that much. And it was 4 locations, 5 people shooting it. So, and they're really telling people who they are, and that creates trust. They're not only just explaining what is Airbnb, they're explaining how to Airbnb, but also why Airbnb. Why it's going to be an amazing experience when you live with Airbnb. So that's, we are now June 2011, so that's 3 years in. And now they're growing really, really fast. At that time, I don't know if you remember where you were in June 2011, 4 years ago, but everybody was talking about them. A lot of people were using them all over the world, because the good thing about their business model is that the word spreads out from country to country, from city to city, because when you use Airbnb to go abroad, then you go back home and you tell your friends and you become a host, etc. So at what point they faced a crisis, what I call the moment of truth. And the moment of truth is when you have been telling this great story for so many years, people believe you, and suddenly a problem occurs and you fail to your promise. The promise was you're going to have this amazing experience when you go on Airbnb. You're going to meet real people, really great people, friendly people, lovely people, for a cheap price. And then in June 2011, something happened that was kind of bound to happen. It's a woman in San Francisco who were hosting, and when she got back to her apartment, the guests had totally distracted the apartment. It was like upside down. They robbed everything, so it was really like a crime scene. And she was a blogger, a really good storyteller. So she told in a very emotional way what happened to her, and that she couldn't trust this website anymore. And believe me, when you are successful, the media want to tell the successful story, but they are also very happy to tell when it fails, when you crash. So the media immediately picked up the story and covered it really massively. And so of course, the word spread out. Oh, you know, it's not that safe to book on Airbnb. And when that starts, it's the end of your business. So you have to face it. And they fucked up, that's their words, because they were growing so fast and their team was still small. So they thought, okay, we are going just to send a check to this lady and, you know, give her just money to pay for the damage. But the check never left the office. So when Brian Chesky told all the media, oh, don't worry, it's fine, then a few days later, the blogger went back to the media, oh no, it's not fine, I never got the money. So it was worse. And so a month and a half later, believe me, it was probably like the worst experience of your life as an entrepreneur. That's why in my opinion, Uber is living right now. It's when people start hating you and telling everyone, don't go to Airbnb, they are such jerks. And so they wrote this blog post. It's very small, though, so I'm not going to read it. But basically, it's a very heartfelt blog post. So the CEO is explaining, we fucked up. I totally apologize. It's our fault. We should have been more careful, more to be able to create a website that would build more trust from guest to host. So they created new features to really connect people and to let people, hosts, know who their guest was. And they did what they had to do, is to align their values or their promise with their acts. And so, since the promise is I guarantee you're going to have this amazing experience, well, they actually guarantee it now. They created a fund, and now if you have damages in your apartment, you can be paid for these damages until up to $50,000. And when they took this decision, everybody in the ecosystem startup said, you are crazy. You are going to lose all your money because there are going to be incidents all over the world and you're not going to pay this kind of money to everyone. But I felt, no, I really believe that my website does good to the world. I believe that people are good, most of them, like 19.9999%. So I believe my business model is sustainable. So I make this promise that if you have a problem, and I am sure it will not happen often, I will pay for the damages. And now the guarantee fund is up to $1 million. So they are really trustworthy. It was, to me, it was the only solution they had. But they had the courage to take it. And it's not, some entrepreneurs, it's not that they lack courage, it's that they struggle between what is good for business and what is good for users. But as Brian Chesky said, when it's good for the users, it's good for your business, because at the end of the day, people trust you and they have an amazing experience. So in terms of communication, they had really ambitious goals. So they organize workshops all over the world with their super hosts, and they made this video because they make video of everything they do, but it's an internal video. And they ask their hosts, what does Airbnb represent to you? What do we bring to you? What do we make possible in your life that you couldn't have done without Airbnb? And so hosts started to be really passionate about the experience they had, and they used all this material to create a very compelling video story.
People all over the world are renting their space on Airbnb. We asked some of them to share their reasons for hosting in their own words.
The extra income allows us to follow careers that we're more passionate about.
We're saving up money for our wedding.
The money I earn with Airbnb allows me to spend more time with him.
We are saving for a bigger house, and our Airbnb money is going to that deposit.
After the kids left home, I had all this extra space, and Airbnb helped me fill it.
Gracias a Airbnb, tendré una mejor jubilación y en 6 meses.
There's so many people in the world that want to travel, and there's so many people with spare rooms.
This year, we have helped over 400 people.
And we already had over 75 guests.
Airbnb is like the magic link that just brings the two together.
I soldi che guadagniamo su Airbnb li usiamo per viaggiare. And within a week, I had my first reservation.
Me gusta hospedar porque así practico mi inglés. Hello, how are you?
It is an amazing house and the view is second to none.
I enjoy seeing people's faces when they arrive and saw the view for the first time.
One amazing thing is that I get to help people live their dreams. And that is why I host.
Welcome to Airbnb.
Benvenuti su Airbnb.
Benvindo a Airbnb.
Welcome to Airbnb.
I don't know if it's compelling to you. Maybe you will feel it's a bit too sentimental, or I don't know, maybe if you did this video today, people would feel, oh, I've already seen it, you know, because a lot of startups start using their users to tell their story, which is really powerful, but maybe we've seen it quite a bit already. But it was really a great idea at the time to show people that were afraid to host or to be a guest on Airbnb, that it's normal people, that they all have their own values, their own dreams. They have great places. Of course, the images are always beautiful. They did a second rebranding of their website in June 2012, and they were really focusing this time on the fantasy of travel, showing really beautiful pictures. Broniszewski said that at the beginning they were using small picture because on Craigslist, which was sort of a competitor that was created before Airbnb, Broniszewski saw that they were using small photos, so they thought, well, it's the way it should be. If Craigslist uses small photos, well, we are going to show small photos. And then they realized, no, it's stupid. People like beautiful photos. When they dream of a place they want to go to, they dream in front of beautiful big photos. So that's what they did that. And then, I don't know if you heard of their last rebranding. Actually, I'm showing you a picture, but in reality, it's a movie. It's a very kind of slow motion movie, so you feel you are looking from a window and you feel immersed in the experience. It's not a Club Med type of movie about people really happy, jumping in the swimming pool and having cocktails. It's really a very slow motion film, and at the beginning you see only a scenery, so you really are drawn to the place. And then you see someone from the distance coming into the screen. So it's really original to me. I haven't seen it on many websites. And so, as I told you at the beginning, they are back to their original tagline, which is "Welcome Home." And now, so they are telling so many stories that I could spend like 8 hours talking about what they do. But this is a very nice example of how they live the mission, how they prove that it's not just storytelling. In 2012, October, there was Hurricane Sandy on the East Coast. And as you probably remember, everybody in New York was like kind of panicked because the hurricane was coming up. And then actually there were damages in the streets, and so people living by the sea had their house completely rubbished, okay, damaged. There was water inside the house, etc. And since Airbnb was this promise that you have an experience when you stay at a stranger's home, actually a lot of people wanted to use the website to offer shelter to people in need. And Airbnb immediately reacted and said, okay, we are waiving fees. If you want to welcome someone in need for free, we won't charge it, which was not possible before, because when you put your listing on the site, usually they take 10%. And at this time they said, okay, no fees. It's like pure generosity, welcome home. It was really living their mission. And for the anecdote, at the same time, Uber was growing in New York, and Uber did what they always do. when a lot of people want a cab and there is no many cab, they surge the price. And as you can imagine, people loved what Airbnb did, and they hated Uber for doing what they did. And so there were a lot of press the next day saying, wow, Airbnb did this is super job. It was not that, it was a good impulse, and it was not that, my belief is that it was not that expensive for them to do that. It was a short period of time. And for Uber, it would have been great to do it, but they were not living the mission, they were just doing storytelling. They were a few years earlier where Airbnb was when they started. And 2 years later, I don't know why it took them so long, but they decided to create a permanent program for shelters. So this is the end of my presentation. I'm going to end with 5 lessons that you can learn from this story. So the first lesson is be true. Usually when people think of storytelling, or oftentimes, they think, okay, or they will say it's storytelling to say it's not true. You're just telling me a story. But really good stories, you don't feel they are storytelling. You just feel something. So for people to really feel something, it has to be not true in the sense that it doesn't have to be the exact truth of what you went through. I'm sure the founders of Airbnb don't tell the exact truth of what happened to them, but the way they tell it, it's authentic. It has a lot of elements of truth, so it sounds true, and it's basically true. And so you have to be true and find something that's really authentic about you, and you have to prove it in all your experience that it is true. You have to show it rather than just tell it. You have to be unique. As I said earlier, I think it's one of the most exciting things about storytelling is that it's really about you. It's not about the next entrepreneur. It's not about the entrepreneurs that were before you and that were successful. In the design industry, a lot of entrepreneurs try to reproduce what Steve Jobs did, but Steve Jobs was Steve Jobs, and nobody wants another Steve Jobs, actually. It would feel funny and fake. So you really have to find in yourself something that is true and that is really you. And it's going to be your personality as a brand. It's going to reflect in your tone of voice. If you are someone really funny in life, usually it's good to be funny as a brand because people love funny brands. But if it's one of your true values, if for you it's important that people feel happy. There are some brands like Ben & Jerry's, for instance. They are always communicating on joy because for them it's a value. It's important for them that people feel happy in their lives. So you have to own a territory. Make it simple. I know that when you start, there are so many possibilities. There are so many ways you could go. So you're not sure if the right way to tell your story is this or this or this. Each time you try a story, because I encourage you to just try them. Try a way to tell a story, and then if it doesn't work, try another way. But really focus on something simple instead of trying to say everything in one sentence. And in terms of communication, be opportunistic. If you don't know who you are and you still want to communicate, it's okay. There are a lot of media who want to cover you even though you're not already successful. But to be interesting for media, like Nathan said, ride the wave, don't try to create it. So find stories that people want to hear right now. And of course, your first preoccupation at the beginning is just to have a business. So if you need users or if you need visits on your website, just try to find some interesting stories that people will want to hear. And when you're confident about your story, like Airbnb was from 2009, make it the story. And then, like I said, you can own your territory and people will love you because you are yourself, because you have a unique story and they will want to hear it. So 5 final tips if you still feel that you're not sure. So that's an advice I heard from Brian Chevsky again. Be your user. It's an advice that designers get when they go to design school. It means that if you want to create an amazing experience and a product people will want to use, you have to put yourself in your user's shoes rather than just imagining what it is to use your product. So another way to say it is eat your own dog food, like the Americans say. Really experience what it is to use your product, and then you will find why is it great, why is it amazing, what is it magical about it, and it will be easier to tell this story. Second advice, there are two ones, but second advice, take the time you need. Like I showed you with Airbnb, they didn't start with a perfect story from day one. It took them 18 months because they tested and tested. So don't feel that it's too early. It's never too early to start thinking about it. Like Vinisha, if you can find a really great storyteller in your team, that's of course better. Sometimes it can be not necessarily the person in charge of the communication, but someone who is really passionate about either video or photography, or someone who writes really well, who likes to do that. And it will help in your communication. If you want to feel inspired, like I said, don't copy and paste from other startups, but you can feel inspired by what they do, and then you can arrange it to make it your own. And then, of course, experiment, experiment, experiment. So if you want to start tonight thinking about your North Star story, I invite you to think about what you truly believed about your product. Why did you do it initially? What did you feel here rather than here? Because usually you start here and then immediately you go here. How do I rationalize it? But you want to talk to your users' hearts, not their brains. So remember what was in your heart when you thought, this is a brilliant idea, I want to do it. And do this exercise for your users. Maybe you are not your user. So I was going to say, live with your user. Not sleep with them, but just, hang out with them. And understand not why they need your product, but what this product makes them feel. How they want to feel, who they want to be, who they want to be seen as. And then try to figure out how can I help them be who they want to be.